Are you a new dad or an experienced dad? Have you been through a different pivots, traverses, and so on and so forth? Well, we're going to focus exactly what it's like to be a dad, to be a husband, to be a partner, and go through all the struggles and pluses here on Man to Man Voices and Stories, live with 72 the Architect. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, gents. How we all doing? Casey, good to see you, man. How you doing today?
Good to see you, Jason. I'm doing well today.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I first met Jackie, your wife, probably last year in the last 8 months. And Jackie has an amazing podcast called the Mama Jack Podcast. And her
Mhm.
focus is pretty much on parenting and what it's like to also go through postpartum. But there's another side of life, and it's definitely being married to a great guy, a father. You're in the filming industry. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
All right, all right. And so there's lots of things that go along with living with a career and a wife and the demands of having kids. And but there's also amazing pluses to that life, and that's what we're here to exactly talk about. So, how old were you when you first became a father?
I was 2 weeks shy of being 30, so I kind of was able to like still get that in my 20s. My son was born 14 days before my 30th birthday when I was 29. So that my late 20s were kind of like getting married and all that, and then I was we thought my son was going to come in my 30s, but I was kind of glad just for some random reason that he was born in my 20s.
And did you have a great relationship with your parents and your dad?
I did for the most part. My dad and my mom got divorced when I was about 7 or so. My sister was 4 years old or is 4 years older than me, so she got to see more of them together, whereas mine was kind of like my childhood, it ended up being kind of all over the place.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, they were both loving and they were supportive. My dad worked a lot overseas. He was in kind of bio he passed away 17 years ago, so it's been a minute. He was like a biochemist, I think, if I remember that
Mm.
correctly.
And if you
But he
don't
was
mind
he
me
was away traveling a lot.
asking,
Mhm.
did you guys have a great foundational relationship?
Elaborate more as far as
Well, he's there when he's home, he's there. He's there to mentor, to nurture, to help you kinda show you the ropes and, you know, teach you to be what's to become an adult and a man, give you, guidance, sometimes directions, but, my dad, as an example, was in and out of my life, and my dad gave me light guidance and light direction, so but I
I
can identify with, parents being there part-time and and having little time, so, yeah.
that's kind of more where it was with us, I feel like. I feel like it was light. I mean, on the weekends or days or whatever it was that I did see him,
Mhm,
we would try to hang out. We would either try to go golfing or hit a couple balls or go out and get a bite, or I would make cheesy home videos at his house. Like that's how we
mhm.
kind of got into film work. And we would just do stuff like that. Half the time we would just hang out though and watch TV on the couch. Um, I understood that with traveling. Now I understand, especially as a father who travels quite frequently and is away for long hours of the day. And I might be the first one awake and the last one to go to sleep, and same thing the next day. And I sleep here, but I never get to see my kids. So I can attest that it is a difficult life to balance, to be able to balance. So I kind of have a little empathy as far as how he was able to manage that in the 90s.
Mhm. Oh, so you're a 90s kid, or were you
I was
80s,
born in
90s?
'89, but obviously I was born in August, so I don't
Oh,
remember.
man, I feel like the old guy here now. I'm like, I entered in high school in '89. So, yeah, that's interesting, to hear, and it is a perspective, but, you know, that's the thing is like, our fathers went through different transitions in different times,
Mhm,
and, there are amazing parts, there are good parts to my dad, as well as the hard parts, and I think the one common thing is like, we don't really got the instructions of what to exactly do as a dad.
or
It's
anything, or an adult really half the time, I feel like.
Yeah, it's kinda like, we're gonna wing it, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna move it along, and yet, the amazing part is you're gonna be a partner to somebody,
Mhm,
and the thing about being a partner is in Stoicism, there is one, trait that they really work on, it's temperance. It's having
mhm.
patience with things. We and our wives and our partners, they look up to us to a great deal. They look for us like, "Hey, give me can you do this? Can you fix this?"
Mhm.
All that great stuff. And when we look at that, it's amazing. Like we're like, I don't always have the answer.
But we'll find it out. We'll figure it out somehow, right?
It's like, hey, I'm gonna do this. So, but are in your journey as a dad and in thinking also about your dad, was there any part where it's like you saw what your dad did and then, man, I feel like I know what he probably went through in his head. Was there any moments like that really you could say, "You know what? My memory of him," and I don't know how sorry, I had an alarm go off. I
You're good.
remember, like, I'll give you an example. One time my dad, uh, there was an altercation, like someone had a problem with him, and my dad was not so easy to quick to react. My dad was always like, "I'm gonna let you talk," as an example, and let that person just run it out, and
Mhm.
he would always just, like, not feed the situation first. He just, like, kind of, like, wait back and just, "I'm gonna listen to you, no matter how mad the person is." That's my example. One of the things my dad, and I'm a very expressionate person. I'm the guy that's like, "Look, I'm ready to get down and throw down and get down and dirty if I need to, but I like to kinda, like, figure out what's going on here." So, is there anything like, kinda like example like your dad did and that you do now with your family that, out of curiosity? I know,
You
like
know, it feels like a weird thing to say. It has just been so long. There's been such
Mhm.
a life without him. Um, it's almost hard to bring up those memories, if that makes any sense.
It makes complete
And
sense.
I completely drowned. I mean, I'm sure, there's no off topics here, right?
No, there's not.
I started having fun with some substances after his death because I couldn't numb the pain any deeper than just like, pot. So I kind of there was a whole few years after where I just everything was kind of a blur. I was really just trying to get through the day, uh,
Mhm.
without thinking about it. So a lot of that stuff I kind of repressed back then. Um, and I wonder if that's probably played a pivotal role in me not remembering a whole lot. I also didn't get a whole lot of time with him. Like I said, my parents were divorced when I was 7, so 10 years I was
That's
doing
about the
the
same for
weekend
me.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about the same for me. My mom was divorced by the time I was 7. I had light
Yeah.
memories of him. And I'm still, I'm blessed to still have him, around, but he's distant. He lives in Arizona. I live in California.
Yeah.
And even when he lived here in California, it was like my dad's a survivor and thriver of PTSD in Vietnam. So there was a lot of substances in his
My
life, and yeah.
my sorry to interrupt. My dad was a pilot. I think he was like a medevac pilot in
Okay.
Vietnam as well. So I can understand that. And I mean, that was a totally different time. Like he signed up. Um, he didn't get drafted. He signed up to be in the army so that
Mhm,
he could choose what he wanted to be in. Because back then it was like, you know, it was probably easy to get drafted into something that you didn't want to go to. So he took that into his own hands and
mhm,
did his tour, and he ended up getting shot. His microphone, I guess, as the story goes, his
mhm.
microphone got shot when he was doing an evacuation, and it knocked out his front teeth. So he had fake teeth his whole like his after that. So he went through some stuff, and I don't blame him. I mean, he probably repressed a lot more than just me with when after he passed. Um, so again, I give him a lot of grace with how he raised us, and he was older too. He was probably about 10 years exactly older than than when we first had our kid. So he was about 6 years older than me, or 6 years older than what I am now. I guess that makes sense, with my sister being 4 years older.
And it's interesting that, sometimes the absence what you travel a lot for your profession. Do I have
Sometimes,
that?
yeah. Hmm.
And there's times you have to stay away from the house because just the work is where it is, and you gotta go where you gotta go, and you gotta do what you gotta do, but when you come home, is there any time that it just takes a little bit to readjust to being home, and
Completely.
especially being married?
And to be frank, I don't really get that time. As soon as
Right.
I'm in the door, it's all on me, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to just take a load off real quick. I need to just sit and be with my thoughts that I haven't had time or you know the ability to do that. But there definitely is a I definitely, as soon as, especially if I'm come from out of state or something, even
Mhm.
if it, like even just a long day, I'll need a little bit of time. But if I come back from, I've been going to not well Florida a little bit, and like New Jersey kind of for random shoots. It's like I just need time. I just need time to just like get rid of what I just did, get rid of that shoot, and then try and be present with my family as much as
It
I
is
can.
it is really hard to shift gears into be a person, be a father, and also be a husband because once you get home, this is the deal. They deal my partner deals with so much, and my daughter's autistic, so, it's I'm autistic, and I deal with Asperger's, and the thing about it is I need a moment. I'm gone sometimes for 12 hours a day, and I drive long distances, like in California, for what I do. And one thing I can definitely tell you, it takes me a good 30 minutes to reacclimate to being home, even just for the day. And it's like, and I see the stress on their face, and I see what they go through a lens. But it takes me a minute to like let me tune in to what's going on with her because my partner, my woman, my lady, you know, she's the rock at home and I'm the explorer and I got to bring home the bacon and whatever it
Mhm,
means, but you know what? Her needs really are important.
mhm.
And no one teaches us guys about that. Like the shifting gears
Oh,
like, you think you're gonna sit home and just like, "Let me let me be like Ward Cleaver and let me just have a drink or whatever," just like, "Let me just chill
right.
and my kids are gonna naturally fall like." No, it doesn't work like
It's like
that.
you can have a drink. You might need a drink, but you're still gonna have to be a dad, and you're still gonna have to
Yeah,
give your
and
wife time to shower without the kids up her butt, and you're gonna have to keep the kids away so she can have quiet time as well. And then I end up taking the late shift, so I put. It really depends on who falls asleep. Whether my son falls asleep first, and I'll just take him to bed. But if my wife um, can take him to bed, she will, because most of the time he wants her. Um, but yeah, it's just meeting all their needs. It's just
now are there, if you don't mind me asking,
mhm,
are there ever any like, my daughter's autistic. Do you have kids that have special needs
mhm.
or need special attention? Um
Yes, for sure. And with Kennedy, our firstborn, my son, he we didn't know what we were doing at all. And
mm,
right when he probably would have started being active in stuff, and maybe we would have considered daycare, that's when COVID hit. So he really like he was like extra protected, almost not even like a bubble boy, but like just extra protected because we didn't know what all that stuff was. And we didn't want to send him to daycare with other kids. So he was really around mom and dad the whole time. And he was kind of maybe over babied. I don't know. It is seems like it has taken it has affected him slightly. He's
Mhm.
very sensitive to sounds and stuff like that. He's very sensory. I don't really know what to call that. I guess he's affected by sensory stuff more. My
So he
daughter,
gets overwhelmed with sounds or maybe sights or
sounds, sights, and situations almost. Whereas my
mm,
daughter doesn't really care. She's a firecracker. She's a little 2-year-old crazy one.
mhm.
But she does have um, this disorder called Syndrome Hits Weiss, and
Oh,
it's a
okay.
very, very rare disorder. They're still figuring it out. My wife is actually interviewing Karen Weiss from that name.
Yeah, she was
Um,
talking about that to me the other day. She was
incredibly excited for her because that is something that hasn't been tapped yet. And I don't think Karen's even done an interview. So this is going to be amazing for Jackie, and I'm excited. But we are utilizing Jackie's platform to be able to bring light to my daughter's disease, and luckily, I don't think that she has it so badly. We've seen other cases where it's a little more severe, and how it might affect how they are able to talk or able to do things. So Harlow's right now in speech therapy, occupational therapy. They're both in therapies for various reasons. So their needs are also on the board, and it's a struggle in this economy, and especially in my industry where we've just been affected by the back-to-back strikes. We have an upcoming negotiations. Insurance companies are not even insuring productions anymore. There's only a couple productions shooting in Atlanta, and so
wow.
the insurance company is basically holding everyone hostage unless they shoot overseas, which some movies are doing with SAG actors who said that they would have our back and they won't. Sorry, I'm going off on a little tangent there, but
No, you're
it's
you're
kind of all
you're
related.
fine. I don't try to control my guests. I see giving us context. Look, this is for guys for out you there watching on TikTok and everywhere else. And this is what we go through. You're gonna we know we need to know we have a firm direction, but we're here to wiggle a little bit. We're here to, we're not here to stress. This is Saturday morning. So remember when we were growing up, it's kind of like you got to used to play with watch Saturday morning cartoons.
I
So
was just gonna say that Saturday morning crowd. We got Scooby Doo.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'm not you're good, man. So you get by you giving that example that lets well, imagine being an oil worker in Texas. He didn't see his family for like 3 months. He's gotta be on the rig 7 days a week. That big paycheck comes in handy. And there's truckers, there's plumbers, there's all kinds of journeymen out there. And
Mhm,
that's the thing about when I created Man to Man, there are so many of our stories that are not being told. There's no game plan. How do you deal with a child that has special needs? How do you deal with a wife that has needs also? And then when do
mhm,
you get to be yourself?
mhm.
And
I
that's the
don't get to be myself most of the time. My wife actually told me, she goes, "Can you please make into your schedule time for you?" I go, "Yeah,
right.
after I do these couple things, I just need time away from the kids to do it." I was basically just giving perspective about what I do because as a freelancer, I mean, I've been in this industry since I was 17, since right about after my dad died. And I've never had an issue of running out of work. There's never been an issue like this that and in 2008 there was the writer's strike, but I was fresh into the industry. There was tons of low budget work. There was enough to
Way to
meet the
get
I
baptized
had
in
at
the
the time.
business.
Oh yeah, right. But there was enough work going around that I could make it work. My overhead
Mhm.
was completely non-existent at that point. I didn't have four people to take care of. I didn't have multiple cars. I didn't have multiple
Remember
business
that
partners.
time
It
when
was
you got
so
up when you
good.
felt like it?
What was I thinking wanting to grow up? I never wanted to grow up. Now looking back, take me
You
back.
see, you think of that Toys R Us jingle, "I don't wanna grow up, I wanna be a Toys R Us." Yeah.
I should have listened. I should have listened. But I feel like our parents had it a little differently. Like most of the
Oh,
time, I mean, they
yeah.
had the American dream lined up in their heads at least, right? They would work, father would work, mother would be at home for most of the time. And father could be a newspaper delivery guy and he own a house, own a three-bed, two bath
Mhm.
house. No problem, free and clear. Now I'm running four businesses, most of them with my
Wow.
wife. I'm trying to manage them all at one, not at all at once. I'm trying to do like little step by little step, not check one thing off this box, check one thing off this box. When money comes in, trying to make it all work. I'm juggling so much that might be my fault because I chose an industry that has contract negotiations. Some industries,
Mhm.
if I worked a 9 to 5, I wouldn't have that issue. Only issue I would have is being let go for an upper management reason or whatever. But I've never had to deal with that. So I'm almost paving my own way and making my own path and trying to make it, you know, be the yellow brick road or instead of go lead me to doom. But it's just tough navigating it. And I've certainly had my challenges, especially with my wife and some of the challenges she's had with postpartum and anxiety, depression. But something clicked in me and was just told me to keep going. I don't know really what it was. One day,
I
well,
think
one
that's
day,
I think that's a resilience that it's I think it's encoded, it's built in us as guys. We're also trained, from very little. Our mothers will tell you, you gotta be mommy's little man. You
mhm,
gotta be the
gotta
man
be
of
a
the
big boy.
house,
Gotta be a big boy.
especially
Yeah.
for yeah, especially when you're a product of, when your parents didn't work out and divorce. Um, no disrespect to ladies, but
No,
there's a
yeah.
yeah, there's a big, like, elephant in the room, and it's like, you tell a boy to be the mommy's little man, what the hell does that mean? Like,
Mhm.
what does that mean to be a man? And if your dad's in and out of your
That didn't
life,
work out. Yeah.
you're like, "What do I do?" And so then when you're a father, I'm gonna admit I have 3 daughters. I have a 27-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So I've been, let's just say, I'm now with the person I could spend the rest of my life with. We have an amazing 6-year-old, but there were some bumps, bruises, potholes, breakdowns,
Mhm.
breakthroughs, and it's like you never know what the next day is gonna be. But when your wife tells you, "Babe, you need to go be yourself for a while. Come on now." And you're like, "Do you realize the laundry list that's gotta be checked and punched in my head?" "Wait, what
Mhm.
do you mean?" "Well, I don't wanna burden you. You already do a lot."
Yeah.
And
That's 100% it.
mhm, and I think that's where the disconnect can be. So, when you and I'll speak just, for, like, you and Jackie, was there ever a time, like, with your first child, with you 2, that there was definitely some fringe disconnect, like, after she had your first with her, or, is it always just you're in sync and just locked, you know?
No, we were in sync, locked pretty much before Jackie got pregnant,
Mm,
or the first time. And it wasn't really a noticeable change at first. It was kind of an understandable change, especially with the hormones and all that. Um,
mhm,
but I went away again. I had to try. I think I was in Mexico that time. I was away both times right before my kids were born. I was in Mexico before my son was born, and I was in LA a lot, and then Hawaii as well before my daughter was born. So I had no choice though. Again, I had to. I it was the work that was presented at the time. I
you
had
do
to.
what you gotta do, right?
I had to be away. Luckily, when my daughter was born, my wife and son were living in Pittsburgh because we were waiting to have our daughter and just to be in an area that was, that we had family in Pittsburgh. We didn't have any family in Atlanta. So we wanted to make sure that our daughter was born, everything was okay for the first month or so, and then we'd come back down. But there was times that I was away, and um, that definitely added to the, a little bit of headbutting, but it also really affected Jackie because she had postpartum, just really from
Mhm.
the get-go. As soon as our son was born, she had postpartum. It went unchecked for a while because we had COVID. No one was seeing anyone for doctors. Everything was shut, everything got effed up, really. I mean, it really did. It was just a bad time. And it wasn't until middle of COVID, like end of 20, early 21, we were like, let's get out of here. Let's move. Let's change things. Let's change our course and get out of LA, maybe be in a more family friendly area. Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Oh,
But
you went
as
from
far as being
postpart
strife.
yeah.
Yeah, so but after my daughter was born and we moved out here, it kinda got worse. I didn't know a single soul, and I probably should have.
Ooh, that's a tough one. You move and then you don't know anybody. Where's your support system? Because when you're home with family, mom, dad, come over, whatever, like one of the things I can say, especially with my 6-year-old, um, my mother-in-law was very instrumental that first week, and she stayed at our house, which was very helpful, but
Mhm.
man, going through it alone, just like she's there, and it's like, and then I gotta go to work,
Mhm.
and you're gone, and it's like, and then you come home, it's like shifting gears. It's like being a semi, you're going uphill still.
Mhm.
You're home, but you still gotta shift it that lower gear, and you just gotta get the to finish the day. What is gonna help them understand? And I really feel that, I didn't understand it when it was happening. We also dealt with postpartum. There was
Mhm.
also major disconnects for us.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, I think time, especially when you both understand a relationship is there, and it's either, imagine going back in the Wild West, people got married to really survive.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can resonate with that. You couldn't do what you do and have kids without having an amazing lady like Jackie.
No, no. I'm so lucky. I mean, and it's funny. Everyone talks about the 7-year itch. We just hit 7 years in January of being married. We've been together for 13 years. Um, but we actually almost had that itch in year. I guess it would have been like 5, going on 6, when she
Mhm.
had her mental breakdown. And I was on set. I was working on a show, and she called me just hysterical. And I can't leave. I do 12-hour days. I was the beginning of my night shift working. I'm a department head. I keep the shots in focus. I can't really just leave. And
Right.
so that was in the back of my head all night, was I hope she's okay. I hope the kids are okay. I hope I can get home and everything's okay, and I can bust out this day and without an issue, without a hitch.
And the reality is, what happened when it wasn't okay?
Well, that's when we were already dealing with financial stress because we moved here not knowing anyone. This was about 10 months into us being here. So I had worked enough and met enough people that work was starting to pick up. But it was me being away for so long. It was the financial struggle still because we were still trying to catch up. And it was all coming back on Jackie, and she couldn't handle it with the 2 kids alone. And at that point, my daughter was um 20, 21. She was, yeah, not even a year old. She was still a crazy, a infant almost.
Mhm.
And so there was so much that Jackie had to deal with, and it took a toll on me like crazy hard because her option that she was told was either get go into a facility like immediately, or try meds and start this thing. Now I
Ooh,
was like, okay,
was she breastfeeding at that time? I mean,
yes. So it took her, actually, she had to
that's a
start
big
weaning
one right
off.
there.
She
Yeah,
had to start weaning off for her own sake. I mean, we had to start cutting off the supply to our daughter. But at that point, it was almost a year, which is great. I mean, for being breastfed or she was pumping at least. Um, so it was just a lot for her to handle. But in my mind, it's I still have to provide. What am I going to do if she's away and I have the kids? I still have
you have to
bills
make
to
a
pay.
living.
I'm running one company at that time only, and I still have to keep things going. And I can't do that. I don't know any babysitters out here. Babysitters here, like in general these days, are way more expensive because of the economic, where we are with the economy based on when I was a kid. I mean, when I was a kid, you could pay someone 20, $30 a night, I feel like, and they would do it. Out here, that's an hour. And so I'm almost giving them away half my hour that I'm not going to get paid until the following week, and they're
Mhm.
getting it immediately, pre-tax. So it was a mind f. I mean, it really, I couldn't think of anything but myself at that point because I'm trying to still keep my family afloat and do what's best for them, but also I have to do my obligation in order to do all that. If I want my wife to get help, if I want the kids to be looked after, it was a bad time. It
Did
was a
you
really
ever
bad
get a
time.
private moment where you just broke down, whether in a bathroom or just in a corner? Was there a moment where you're just like, "Excuse my language, but fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck,
several times,
seriously, like
several times. I actually went into therapy. I had
mhm.
been trying it and trying things left and right and trying free therapies that I could find because again, it was in a financial crisis. We were still catching up, which I'd never been in a situation before, really until we moved. But our quality of life in general here is far better, I feel like, than
Well, it's
LA.
interesting, like, the number one stressor in all couples is financial,
Mhm.
and you have to get lockstep with each other. One has to be willing to bring in the reins and control, like, "Hey, we may want this, but the reality is we need to invest in the home," and
Mhm.
then the other is like, uh, we can't stay like this. We can't stay stagnant. We have to
Yeah.
move. We have to try. And when you're juggling with like someone else's emotions, not just one, but three,
Mhm.
that's huge. I mean, kudos to you. I mean, because like I've been fortunate, you know, at the time when we had my youngest, I still had, my now 16-year-old
Mhm.
with us every single weekend. How was I to give her the daddy time
Mhm.
and my partner her time and my little one? Because, like, when they're small, it's very important, guys, that you got to know that you do need that one on one connect holding. It's not just, and don't be afraid of changing diapers. It's not going to kill you.
Oh
I've
my god,
heard
I still can't believe I
there are
read a
guys who do
statistic.
that.
They don't at all, and I'm like, still to the it was a much smaller percentage now than it was, like, when I was a kid, but still,
Mhm.
I was like, "How is that even a possibility?" Unless you're just non-existent, which I would understand if you're away every day of the year, but, outside of that, that's the only excuse unless you don't have arms. I mean, come on. It's your kid.
Right. And
It's crazy.
and when I hear these guys talk about, no, that's a woman's job. All right.
I hate that shit. It's so
And
stupid.
if
I'm
I
like, "Who
and it's
raised you,
interesting
man?"
because when I talk to some of these guys and I just sit down and I talk to them and I'm like, look, the one-on-one time is going to build that bond later that
Mhm.
you're going to want. Because the more that you're gone and you don't touch your child, you don't hug on them, talk to them, even when they're infants, it's very important to create that connection with them.
Mhm.
So, um, do you resonate with that? When you got to be home, like what was it that when you've got, say, like a little girl, or a little boy, whichever you want to pick, or both, and you're exhausted, but it's like something about them gives you an energy charge. That's the way I feel.
So I didn't really have that. So when my son was born, I was working on overnights. I was on the show Big Brother. I was operating on for overnights. I think I still had another month or two after, but then we had a winter season, so I was just
Mhm.
never home. I would come home at 9 a.m. I'd sleep till 3 or 4 p.m. I'd try to help out in any way and then go to work. It was horrible.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was never there to see my son in those early stages, right? And then when COVID hit, I had all the time, but even that time before played an integral part of how he viewed me after that and how our relationship is now. He wants to hang out with me a lot more, but there's still a slight disconnect. Now with my daughter, I since I was home immediately from I stopped working like I stopped flying to LA in like a month before my daughter was born and working just because I could stay home.
Mhm.
And I didn't really work again for a few months into when she was born because I didn't know anyone. So I got to spend so much more time with her in her infancy stages. And that's really resonated a lot with her and how our relationship is now. Because now, as soon as I get home, she runs to me every time. She's total daddy's girl. I love it. It's the best. It's the best. I'm sad that I didn't get that with my son because of the circumstances that were happening when he was her age. But I do have that at least with her, so that is something for me, and that's it's a good
I
thing.
think I think with boys, and I don't have any girls, uh, mind
Boys,
you, but dealing with
you don't have
boys
any boys.
specific. Yeah, I don't have any boys at all. I'm a girl dad. I'm done. 51 years old, I'm done. Hey, this ticket
That's
ain't producing any more any more slips, so you know what?
That's
That's
mine.
done.
I timed it so that when I'm 50, they're both 18. They're out of the house. So
I think that's also something that builds on a lot of guys' conscience. Like, you work a lot, you're trying to get that house, earn the living, do all these things, and it's like you don't get layaway time. You
Mhm,
don't get later necessarily the way that you think or you want it. But what you do is you get opportunities. And I wish that I would have learned this 25 years ago and just
mhm,
someone would have said, "Hey, man, I know you're struggling with, your partner, but it's just try to put your ego down and try to put your
mhm,
needs just a little aside, not completely, but just hear it out." And that's touching on the children. It's hugging them, it's talking to them, listening to them,
mhm.
and seeing how their little minds work, even from being in the walker or the jumper or whatever, you know, to where they're having a full conversation in their mind to you, and you're like,
Mhm.
"Dude, I do not understand Minecraft. I do not
Yeah.
understand, like, dad is not ready to check into Caillou," but you gotta get there. You gotta be act
Mhm.
like you're interested in, like, "Hey, this is someone is filming, and it's them because 'cause they're always watching."
Oh, yeah.
And with that notion, how do you feel like they're really kids mimic us in a lot of things? What do you feel how do you feel about that? I mean, like,
Um, I mean, they definitely do. Um, I've noticed more recently, probably even just within the last year, maybe a little longer, that when I spend more time with them,
mhm,
listening to them, even if it's playing the stupid games or whatever, or just being silly with them, when I really give them that time, it's actually like a dopamine fix for me. It actually like feels good and natural and like it's the right thing to do almost, if that makes sense, versus like I could just be on my phone, I could be doing business stuff, I could be checking emails, like I'm always on my phone because I don't really pay, it's more convenient for quick things. But when I actually spend time with my kids, like my daughter the other day, 2 nights ago, we were going to bed and she's really nonverbal. She's 2.5. She's the one with Sifram Hits Weiss. But she's points a lot and she'll go and like try to, and I'll say the word and I'll say it a bunch of times and she'll sort of say it and we'll just have fun with that and just riff on that. And when I do that even with my son and when I start playing, like he has this need for or this Hot Wheels video game on his tablet and he can make tracks. It's almost like I had Roller Coaster Tycoon when I was a kid. It's almost
okay.
like that, but for like hit tablets and like he's 4 and he's making this whole track and he's racing on it and it's so crazy. And it's like I've had so much fun with him the other day playing that. And it's these little moments that you you don't think about until you're in them and you go, wow, I think I might have just created a core memory for that kid right now. And it's
Right.
like building those core memories early on and trying to maximize how many you can make is going to stick with them a lot more than buying them a toy.
Right. Well,
You
one
know,
thing
it's the time
and
that you
and
spend with them
I
or
can
the
resonate with
experience that
that.
you give them. Yeah.
Yeah, this is another thing for guys. Don't think that when you buy the thing is the connecting thing. It doesn't work like that because you can buy a kid an expensive toy. I remember buying my daughter, my middle one, the Barbie Dream House, and with after I set it up and that thing is just intricate and a pain in the butt to put together, did it most of Christmas morning. It's just plastic and cardboard.
That's all it is. It means
And
I can't remember beyond 2 specific Lego builds that I got. I was huge into Legos. Besides 2 specific Lego builds that I got, that both of them are still built to this day, 20 something years later after I built them. I have a helicopter and I have this motorcycle that's like more see-through kind of. It's like more I don't know. Lego had some weird thing where it wasn't all bricks. It was like, you could do stuff. But besides those, I only remember the experiences I had. And I want to maximize that for my kids, which is again where the financial struggle is killing me because I want to, and they're still young and I don't want to travel with them too much yet because I don't remember too many memories before I was 5, I would say. And my
Mhm.
kids are under that. So, but I want to get to a point where I can give them experiences where we can go traveling, we can learn different cultures, because that would mean more to me than a toy. I actually strongly dislike Christmas. I would rather give them a Christmas vacation
I agree with you.
or something like that. Something silly, something stupid where we made snowmen and had this massive snowball fight with, a whole block of people, or something like that, versus a toy. Because a toy, they just forget about. I can't remember a
Yeah,
single
it ends up in
toy
a
that
in a
I
box or in the garbage within
My
a
mom goes,
year.
"Oh, do you remember this toy from your childhood?" I go, "No, mom, I don't. I don't. I remember when we went. I remember when I went to Australia when I was 10. I remember when I went to Maine for the family vacations. I remember all those things. The time that I spent with people in different places, learning different things. That's what I remember the most, and that's what I want to instill in my kids. Is not these um, tangible things, but these intangible experiences. Well, I guess experiences might be tangible, but you know what I mean. Like not these products or anything. I want them to have life skills, life experiences, and
I,
that's the
I think
biggest for
that's
me.
that's the thing is like when we like now when I get my daughter something, my 6-year-old, when I get her something now, I make sure that I spend time with her doing the thing that I bought for them and with them. Remember, I got a Nintendo Switch and my daughter just fell in love with Minecraft,
Hmm.
and I won't let her play Roadblocks, but I didn't understand like a video game. But then, you know what she likes doing? She likes playing with dolls. And her padrino, her godfather, would be outside I'd be coming home from work and I'm just like, what's going, and I just see, a guy who goes works construction, a grown man playing with dolls with imagination with my daughter. And that's the thing is that we can't get complacent about our life because just taking that time coloring, playing with Play-Doh, and being in their world sometimes gives a lot of times actually gives us the break that we need.
Hmm. It
And
totally does, but it's so hard to see that unless you give yourself the time to be present in what they're doing. It's so, like I said, it's so easy to just be distracted, go do the dishes, go check an email, go all these little things. And you don't realize that in those 5 minutes that took, that 5 minutes could have been something so special between you and your kids.
correct. And when it's like those moments you just can't recapture. Like my daughter loves to help her mom in the kitchen. There's times where she's just like, I want to do this. I want to get on the stand and I want to help wash dishes and see mommy. And when I come home, it's like a different level. It's like my daughter, she'll do this every so often. Like she'll want to exclude mom. She'll want to exclude mom. Like, no, me and daddy are going out. Me
Yeah.
and daddy are gonna, you know, and I gotta let her know that it's like you are my little queen. Or
Hmm.
mommy's my queen, and but I gotta do this more often where it's really a connection with yes, because their little memories will stick long after we're gone,
Hmm.
from tying their shoe to putting them on their first bike or taking them to dance class, watching their performance. Like my daughter's in a dance and you know, it's like I remember my daughter's first performance. Last year they had this dance recital at her dance academy. And I was waiting for her right outside where the parents pick the kids up. And the first thing, my daughter shined on stage, but as soon as she got off stage and came back to dad, it was like, this is home base.
Hmm.
It's like it gets you choked up inside. You're like, oh man, it feels so warm. And do you feel that, with your kids in moments? Do you feel like, man, they come to you like you are the knight, you're the builder, you're everything to them, and they just boom, they collapse into you. Do
My
you get
daughter
that?
does more. My son does occasionally, but more
Mhm.
to my wife, and then my daughter is more to me versus my wife. So it's kind of nice, I guess, that we each get one. But I mean, I wish it was both for both
Oh,
of us.
they'll flip-flop. They
Yeah,
will. They'll flip
Yeah.
flop.
Oh yeah, I know.
And so going back to, you know, being married to Jackie, you
Mhm.
know, I'm very curious of like when she attends to you and makes you the priority before Casey has to do all these things at home and put things in order or do whatever needs to be fixed. What does it feel like to have a wife that says, "Nah, babe, it's time for you." You
Well, it feels good. I feel like I'm appreciated. Um, I still don't feel I can do it. I still feel like I have to, until we're at the level that I want us to be, which is really above water. Then
Mhm.
I feel like I don't have the freedom to do that. I don't have the luxury of time for myself,
Mm.
you know?
And it's
It's
very important that they're one-on-one time with you, you know, the hugging you, still kissing
Mhm.
you, still, you know, and one thing I will tell all guys, no matter how long you've been married, you still gotta be the hunter. You still gotta flirt with your wife. You still gotta do just because they're at home, you gotta remind your lady of how beautiful and amazing she is, no matter what stage she's at, mentally, physically, and spiritually. You gotta, and you know what? But we also have to receive, which is a beautiful thing. And when we receive, it's like sometimes you don't want to let it get to you too much because I still got to go back and shift gears and fix whatever and assign things. I can't let myself relax too much.
Yeah.
But when we see that where they are attending to us, you know, can you really receive it? And that's the thing is, can you receive it when, especially it's earned? You may not feel like you earned it, but you know, how do you feel about that? Like they're saying, nope, we're not going nowhere, not doing it. It's you, Casey. Like,
It's nice. It doesn't happen as often as maybe for others, but for me, even just the notion that she brings it up is enough for me to take a step back and at least understand that what I'm doing, it doesn't go unnoticed, and she really does care about me, because she can see me getting overwhelmed or just completely exhausted by stuff, by my own doing most of the time, and she's aware of it and she tries to alleviate that. It's nice.
right. And
Nice. I feel like
so,
I was telling her the other day, I've been really big into this like manifesting stuff for a little bit, or trying to be, because she was, and I've been trying to follow it and practice, telling myself and reaffirming that what I'm doing means something, and what I've done a lot, I've done enough. I've already won the lottery, because what I have is I have a roof over my head. I have skills to communicate my needs and my issues with everyone. That includes debtors. That includes the rent people, whoever. I have two beautiful children that love me. I have most of the people around me still alive. I've already won the lottery. I just got to keep doing this. That's it.
yeah, I agree. You got to keep going forward. There are moments to be satisfied. And that's one thing that when I talk to guys, like there is really, you got to feel the spoils of the battles you've been through and survived through and thrive through. And if you don't take that time to even just sit for 5 minutes, breathe. Matter of fact, just the other day, I was talking to a guy where he was like, "Man, I work so hard. My wife is taking care of the house. My kids are all doing great in school. And sometimes I just need, like, do they notice?" And I'm like, if you never ask, if you never present your ass, and this is really tricky, it's really tricky. Like, we're not asking, but we are in a way.
Hmm.
And it's like when they come and like, "Oh, yeah, here, you know, whatever you need." And when you transition that into life, it's an amazing thing. But and then that's also spirituality. So do you and Jackie have a strong spirituality life that you share with each other? Doesn't mean you have to be like pro religion, but you definitely the spirit is a part of your lives.
I would say it is, especially more recently, now that Jackie's kind of delved very heavily into that world. Um, at first, I was skeptical, to be honest, because I couldn't see the grass on the grass that I was told would be green on the other side. I couldn't see it, right? I see it; it's a mirage now, but I see that it's there. Um, but it was a little hard to take in. But the more I've kind of just let it be organic and let her do her thing, and more I've seen her really shine, and the more it's gotten me to take a step back and even start educating myself on things on not and it's not necessarily spirituality, but it's more of just being aware of things more, not just of my surroundings, but of what's going on in my subconscious, what's going on in my thoughts, what's going on in my body, my everything, right? It's
Mhm.
made she's given me that opportunity to feel things that I haven't felt before because she's presented it in a way that's not overbearing. I was raised Catholic.
Mhm.
I went to Catholic school until I was in 12 in senior year of high school. That stuff was just forced down our throat, you know? And so to not have that with this aspect, but to still be receiving the same information and receiving the same message, if not better and more clearer and more loving, then I don't think I would be where I'm at now. I think her breakdown that led to her spirituality
Mhm.
got me to be where I'm at. So I think it's, I mean, like I said earlier, it's like the 7 year itch. Sometimes it doesn't work out. I think that's when we've been boosted up. I think that's been our best year
Do you
because
think
we've
that
really gotten on the
struggle
same.
do you think that struggle creates more of the worth that I believe that when you both get through the struggle and you really walk in step, like me and my partner, we had a major breakthrough in our relationship
Mhm,
last year. And we're not always in line, but one thing I will say is that I now can receive her a lot better. And when they give you that information, the spiritual world, like, you know, my woman is into that realm, like getting you to think about manifestation. What are your dreams?
mhm,
What's your future state of mind? What's what's your clear message? What direction you want to go? And she never lets me forget that ever, and but she also has remedies. I'm a picky eater, man. I hate onions. She'll sneak onions. Not you need onions for your diet. You're diabetic, man. Sorry. Eat it. I don't care, and then sometimes I'll pick it out and just like last night we're having hibachi in a Japanese restaurant, and I'm just like, "Here, you'll take the big chunks. I'll still eat
mhm,
my vegetables," but they do things that nurture us, and I too would not be the man without the person that I'm with right now. She gets
mhm.
that's I can't even explain it. It's like, dude, that's why I say when we come home, they are rock.
Mhm.
They're not mud. They're rock. And we always got to remember, don't let it get to your head, big boy. Hey, but you know, is there remedies? I'm just curious, is there remedies that Jackie exposed you to that you're just like maybe you're skeptical, something that you know gave you and you're like, I don't know about this, but you know what? Yeah, it works out. All right, I'm good with that. Is there anything like
I was really skeptical about cards. She does all the tarot cards, and I don't.
Mhm,
There's a
me too.
million other types of cards that she does. I was incredibly skeptical about that. I go, there's no way that the card that just fell out is going to be the one for me. And it's about 99% accurate as far as how many cards have been pulled for me that have been directly related to what's going on in my life.
Mhm,
There was a job I was supposed to be on a job in the Virgin Islands. Like some of the um I didn't like some of the history of some of the people that were in charge of that, and so I called into question that some of those things because I wanted elaboration. not even a day or so before that happened, I was pulled a card that said something big that you have will go away, but just keep going through. And I ended up losing that job basically because I had an issue with it, and which sucked because it was a lot of money and they're having a great time down there. But I have been able to work on my limousine business more and get that to where I've got a better sense of where it needs to go, which I would not have been able to do that without. So that as soon as that hit and those things were happening, I was like, Jackie, remember like 3 days ago when you said this is happening. It's happening right now. So it's only been off like a couple times, and not even in a full reading. It would be off by like one card, but everything has been crazy. And I'm like, okay, I'm a believer now. I don't know what to say. I'll start listening to
I can agree
signs
with that.
more.
I wasn't the greatest. I wasn't the greatest. I mean, I've asked for my cards to be read, and she won't just like automatically like give her the cards like, no, I'm gonna go read to you. But
Mhm.
if I ask for it, yeah. And I've been skeptic also. When you look at like zodiacs and things like that. I've not been like the most receptive because I'm like, I don't believe in predetermination. I'm like, life changes in a blink of an eye.
That's my thought too, is we all have, at least we think, we all have free will and we can all make our own, we can all choose our own destiny. We can choose, we just have to choose, we have to actually do it. But a lot of those things, they were lining up.
Right. And you can't explain it. And
Yeah.
one thing my lady will do is she'll be like, I told you so sometimes. And I'm like, oh God.
Yeah. You're like, I'm not
Just
gonna say it.
don't I'm not once you do that, I told you so, it
Yeah.
starts a whole new gets you in a whole new bag of worms. You're like, you're no,
Now you're
I don't
looking
want
for
to do
things
that
that you told them to. Yeah.
because the minute you do it, it's like, oh, you made me feel like crumbling. I'm like, nah, I got to get to the best part. And I think that's one other thing is, um, not everything that they say needs a reaction.
Hmm.
It needs a place, but sometimes I think that's the hardest part is understanding when do I chime in or let me just let them. And she had to explain to me a little bit about holding space. Cause to me as a guy, I'm like, dude, that's just a freaking woo woo thing to say to me. I don't
Yeah.
work in that world, but holding space for them is different. And when I don't hold space, she lets me know, like,
Mhm.
I'm mad, and that communication thing. So, how important is it to you to hold space for Jackie and vice versa?
It's incredibly important. I was really hard headed earlier on, many years ago, early on in our relationship, early on in our marriage, even with we a little bit with our kids, and it took me a while to really get where I am now. Um, Shoot, I just lost my train of thought.
When you're holding space, when you're
Yes,
going good. Okay.
I feel like we would have been where we're at now much earlier had I been able to hold space for her when she needed it the most, which was October, November of 2022, right before her breakdown. I feel like there were some telltale signs, and I was so hyper focused on work, work, money, 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 money that almost let I almost let her go because of that. I almost
Mm,
did not. I mean, I not almost. I didn't really listen to her needs. I wasn't holding space for her. I wasn't giving her the time that she needed to just be and to just tell me what's going on without a reaction.
mhm.
And it wasn't until recently, but I can say any guys out there that are skeptical about it, just fucking do it.
Yeah.
You're gonna notice. Just try it. Try it. Try it once. Try it twice. Not gonna kill you. Might be 10 minutes of your life. Try 5 minutes each time. Just give her space. Give her the time. Hold space for her so she can be whatever she needs to be. She can tell you how things are. She can vent. She can do whatever she needs to do without judgment or without a reaction.
I think that's the hard
And
part is as
I
a
wish I would have
guy,
listened myself.
we want to fix. Like, you tell us a
Fix this.
problem. Yeah.
We'll fix it. The
We're
cover's
like,
coming loose. Okay, let me get my drill. Done. Fixed.
yeah.
Next.
And this is a tool with just listening and not looking disinterested or having, and here's the thing. When you're listening to your lady and you're giving her space, that means put the phone down, put on silent, don't be answering nothing, don't have the TV on. Just actually look at them with compassion, some empathy. And a lot of times we don't know that because, let's be honest, there's not a lot of compassion room for men. There's not. It's like, we got to go through war and that still build a house at the end of the day. I've got to provide fire and I got to provide the beef. They get to put the rest together. And without understanding that team, it's very important to see that, holding space for them, really giving them, and it's understanding, like, and sometimes they want us to give an answer and they're ready to just do you ever have this happen where you're saying something and they just jump and interrupt you? And you're like, it's like that knee jerk, like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's go back for a minute. But it's also very important that when they do, you remember your train of thought. They may have an interruption, but it's like they didn't think about that feeling before. So, how
We
do
do
you
the same
do it?
thing, I feel like. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
At the end
Yeah.
of the day, regardless of if we're a man or a woman or anything else, we're still people, and we still have feelings. We still have our emotions. Sometimes that can't be checked. They might just be going crazy. We all have our inner voice, and it's important to remember that, yes, she might have interrupted, but how many times have we interrupted her? How many
Mm.
times have our thoughts come first in our mind when we should have actually been nurturing her concerns? But it's taken me, I'm not an expert. It's taken me 30, 40. I only figured this out like a couple, not that long ago. I'm
There
just trying to help
you're
anyone
I
else
don't
out there who
I don't
hasn't
I don't
figured this
think as
out
a
yet. It's
husband
been really,
or a man, I don't think that we're experts at all.
no.
And even the ones that do seem like it, they'll still tell you I'm not. The
Yeah.
ones I've met. So, with all that being said, we're coming up at the top of the hour, and I just want to say thank you for being a guest, and I would love to
Of
invite
course.
you on Man to Man Voices and Stories. I am going to be working towards, after I interview enough men, I'm going to have panels, and I would love to invite you. It's kind of like it'll be a round table of guys, and we tackle certain particular issues as what men deal with and how we can better pivot, because our mindsets of guiding our children, going after the vision, the person you want to be, and being the best partner you can be for your partner. It's the more of us talk about it, the better the world does get, and for our kids is a big deal. You know what I mean? So I feel like that is definitely something that we can learn from. So Casey, any questions or thoughts in closing for you?
No, not really. Thank you for holding space for me. This has been great.
Right. I just, I'm here to make an experience, and that's it.
Mhm.
And the experience is for men to learn by our example. We sometimes the breakthroughs are just sitting with your wife and just listening. Sometimes the breakthroughs are like, you know what? Let me be attended to, because that burden in our heads does not always get expressed, and it doesn't, and the needs don't get met. So I just want to say thank you so much. And I know Jackie's listening over on Clubhouse. So, thank you so much for being a guest. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be closing out the show. We'll see next time. So, yeah, you know, and here's the thing. If you have a needs, guys, if you're not sure where to express, come back to Man every month, and we'll have discussions, chats, all that great stuff. Casey, we'll see you next time. You take
Thanks,
care.
Jason.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So that was Casey Norton. Great guy. If you want to listen to his wife's podcast, it's called the Mama Jack podcast. And I love listening to Jackie. I've listened to a few episodes, so I don't give too many shout outs to people's content, especially when I'm making some. But actually, let me see if she's available. Maybe she might want to come to stage and share that just for a moment as I close out. Good morning, Jackie. How are you? You just heard Casey. Any final thoughts in your mind? Yeah. Well, don't worry. That's the part of life of being a parent. So thank you. So yeah, it's one of those things. But anyhow, I'm gonna end here on YouTube. So I'm gonna close up my intro so he can get away from the camera. I see him still in the studio, but and yeah, you're good, buddy. But yeah, so here I'm gonna close out real quick and then go over to Clubhouse. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't been on the app called Clubhouse, I have a house, more like a group, and there's a three of them. One's man to man voices and stories, and the next is Sound Off Tune In. And that's where you can be a part of these live discussions. So here, let me close out YouTube.